So we can begin. Anandi is remembering that on Thursday afternoon, always Nargis used to be with us. So she thinks we can dedicate this session to remembering Nargis and how much she used to enjoy these sessions together.
Finally, I was the one bringing her.
Sorry?
Finally, I was the one bringing her in my car.
You used to bring her in your car.
And
Then she couldn't.
after calling at the Martin of the gate,
She couldn't. Yes, right. So we're reading in Book 2, Canto 3. We just started Canto 3 last time. This means that King Aswapati has entered into the realm of the subtle worlds. He's been shown the great world stair, all the many, many levels reaching up from the base of matter up to the formless above. And he started to climb up that stair. The first realm which he entered was the kingdom of subtle matter, which is a very, very beautiful realm of perfect form. And Sri Aurobindo tells us that it's as if that world is a kind of perfect template for all the forms of this world. But although it is so beautiful, it is also limited. It's also a physical world, a world of form. And as such, it is limited. And what King Aswapati is looking for is something much vaster and more powerful. He's looking for the power or the principle that will not only give perfect form here on earth, but will turn our earthly life here in the material world into a divine life. So he has to go on much further in his journey before he will find that solution. So he has entered into the life worlds. This canto is called The Glory and the Fall of Life. Above the worlds of matter, the worlds of life. And in fact, Sri Aurobindo devotes quite a big part of this Book 2 to these life worlds. There's Canto 3, and then Canto 4, Canto 5, Canto 6, Canto 7, Canto 8, Canto 9. They are all devoted to different aspects of the life worlds. So when he first enters these realms of life, he enters at a level which is like the life that we know here. And he sees that life in all its unsatisfactoriness, its instability, its doubtfulness. No? And we had reached line 70, where Sri Aurobindo is speaking of the power of life, the creative principle of life as a goddess, she. So I'm going to start reading at line 70. Then we'll go back and look at each sentence in more detail. Amid her swift, untold variety, something remained, dissatisfied, ever the same, and in the new saw only a face of the old. for every hour repeated all the rest, and every change prolonged the same unease. A spirit of herself and aim unsure, tired soon of too much joy and happiness, she needs the spur of pleasure and of pain, and the native taste of suffering and unrest. She strains for an end that never can she win. A perverse savour haunts her thirsting lips. For the grief she weeps, which came from her own choice, for the pleasure yearns that racked with wounds her breast. Aspiring to heaven, she turns her steps towards hell. Chance she has chosen, and danger for playfellows. Fate's dreadful swing she has taken for cradle and seat. Yet, pure and bright from the timeless was her birth. A lost world rapture lingers in her eyes. Her moods are faces of the infinite. Beauty and happiness are her native right, and endless bliss is her eternal home. So we'll read these sentences one by one. You'll start, Suresh?
Amid her sweet, untold clarity, something remained dissatisfied, ever the same. And in the new saw only a phase of the old. For every hour repeated all the rest, and every change
Prolong.
the same
Ease.
unease.
Yeah. So the variety of life, the changefulness of life, that's what we notice. No? Life is always unpredictable. But this spirit of life remains always dissatisfied. It's never good enough, never enough. And that dissatisfaction remains the same. Even if there's new things coming and happening, it's only a new face, a new mask of the old dissatisfaction. In that way, every hour is just like all the rest. And even every change, it's just prolonging, drawing out that same uneasy, dissatisfied feeling. If we look carefully at life, it's something like this. Whatever enjoyment we may have, we soon get tired of it. It's never enough. Anandi.
Spirit of her, self and aim. Spirit of herself and aim and fear. Tired soon of too much joy and happiness. She needs the spur of pleasure and pain, and the native taste of suffering and rest. She strains for an end that never can she win.
Yes. But the spirit of life as we know her on our level. She's unsure of herself, unsure of what she really wants. She enjoys joy and happiness, but then she soon gets tired of it and wants a different flavor. She needs the spur. A spur is something that drives you forward. The stick that you poke the bullock with, or the elephant. No? A spur. A spur of pleasure and of pain. These two things together. No? Pleasure by itself you get tired of. So this alternation of pleasure and pain, that's the spur that drives us forward. And then this contrasting tastes, the native taste of suffering and unrest. Unrest also is like dissatisfaction. You can't rest because you're not satisfied. She strains. There's always this tension and effort. She's straining for something, an end that she can never win. She can never reach it. Alice.
A perverse savour haunts her thirsting lips. For the grief she weeps, which came from her own choice. For the pleasure yearns that lack, while wounds of her breast, aspiring to heaven, she turns her steps towards hell.
This is this contradictory nature of life. Perverse savour, it's distorted, impure. It is haunting her thirsting lips. If you're thirsty, you always want to drink something more, no? And there's that taste. She needs more and more of it. She gets unhappy. She feels grief. But she knows very well that this grief that she's weeping for has come from her own choice. She's made the choices that led to this grief. She goes on yearning for the pleasures which have caused her so much suffering in the past, which have wrecked, it means tortured, with wounds, her breast, her heart. In her there's a longing to reach heaven. That's where she has come from. That's where the divine life spirit has come from. But here in our world, she finds herself always turning her steps on that downward way into the deep, dark, painful and suffering worlds. Johannes.
Chance she has chosen and danger for playfellows. Fate's beautiful swing she has taken for cradle and seat. Yet pure and bright from the timeless was her birth. A lost world rapture lingers in her eyes. Her moods are faces of the infinite. Beauty and happiness are her native rights. Right and endless bliss is her eternal home.
Yes. So Sri Aurobindo is not one of those spiritual teachers who thinks that we have to shun life, that there's something inherently wrong with life. It's only at a certain level there is this problem. And later on in the canto, he will explain to us how things have become like this. But right here he tells us, and we must remember these very, very important words. She's chosen chance and danger for her playfellows, for her comrades. And she's chosen to sit on this dreadful swing of fate that goes up and down. But nevertheless, pure and bright from the timeless, from the supreme, beyond time and space. She has been born pure, bright, full of light. And because of that, that gives the attraction of life. In her eyes is lingering this lost world rapture, this delight in the world. And all her moods, whether they're good moods or bad moods or all the many, many different moods of life, he reminds us that each of these is like a mask or a face, an aspect of the infinite. Beauty and happiness are her native right. She's born with that right to beauty and happiness. And her eternal home is the endless bliss, the supreme Ananda. That's where life has come from, really. Anybody would like to ask anything? Well, when she was born into Ananda, into world rapture in the whole creation. But now she's in this world of matter, so she's lost. He will describe so poignantly how she has lost that world rapture.
Originally she was not like that.
Originally she was came from endless bliss. Yes. Beauty and happiness, that's her native right. Delight is the true source of the life principle.
There's a contradiction. Tired soon of too much joy and happiness in the middle, and then beauty and happiness are her native light.
Yes, so one thing is true on the highest level of her origin, and the other thing is true here in this lower world. Something has happened. And later on in the canto, Sri Aurobindo will tell us exactly what has happened, what has gone wrong, what has brought about this perversion and distortion of life, life as we know it. Amrita, you would read? Yeah?
It is now revealed this concrete place of joy, a sudden disclosure to the heart of me, entering into and hope.
Yes. So now Asvapati sees that home, that eternal home of life, the home of endless bliss. This now revealed its antique face of joy, its original ancient face from the very beginning of things. And that face is so beautiful, a sudden disclosure, a revelation to the heart of grief, this heart of grief that we know so well. And that revelation, that disclosure, tempts the heart, the human heart, to endure, to long, to hope. Tomoko.
Even in changing worlds,
Yes, bereft, yes.
bereft of peace, in an air racked with sorrow and with fear, and while his feet trod on soil unsafe, he saw the image of the happiest thing,
happier state. Yes. He saw the image of a happier state. So this is King Asvapati, where he's been described as standing on the subtle levels of life at our level, in changing worlds, bereft of peace. It means all peace has been taken away from them. There's no peace. And the air of those worlds is racked, again this same word, tortured, with sorrow and with fear. While his feet, Asvapati's feet, he's standing, treading on a soil that is unsafe. That was described in what we read last week, that it's quaking. There's no firm place to set foot. Even while it's like that, he, Asvapati, saw the image of a happier state. He gets a glimpse of that true original world of bliss. Yes. And now that image is going to be described. Sarojini.
In an architecture of hierarchic space, circling and mounting towards the creation's clouds at a blue height which never was too high before on communion between body and soul, as far as heaven, as near as thought and goal. Glimmer, the kingdom of a griefless life.
That's what he's seeing. He's seeing the kingdom of a griefless life, a life where there's no grief, no unhappiness. He sees it as a huge space going upwards, an architecture of hieratic space. Hieratic actually means priestly. The priest is the one who makes a connection between us here and the heavens. So that space makes a connection between our level and that higher level. And he sees circling, moving upwards towards the very highest levels of the creation. It's a blue height, and yet it never seems too far away. It was never too high to prevent this warm communion. There's a communication, a connection between the body here and the soul there. No? All that is as far as heaven, as high out of reach as heaven, and yet it feels as near to Asvapati as thought and hope. Thought and hope are things that are very close to us. No? So like that, he sees at this height, glimmering, glowing with light, the kingdoms of a griefless life, a kind of life where there's no unhappiness at all. And the description continues. Would you like to read, sir? Yes? Will you read? Thank you. So above him, in a new celestial vault, we can say that these words, celestial vault, it applies to the sky as we see it. No? A vault, an arching kind of roof, the sky. He sees a new sky. It's different, other than the heavens which we see with our mortal eyes, our physical eyes, which are subject to death. He sees it looks like a kind of ceiling of a palace of the gods, maybe. A fretted ceiling. It means that it has been very, very beautifully and skillfully carved. We see this in Moroccan, in Arab architecture. So beautifully patterned and carved the ceilings. Either whether they're made of wood, fretted normally has to do with being made of wood. Very carefully cut with a fret saw, a special kind of saw for doing that. What he sees is like an archipelago. An archipelago means a line of islands, a collection of islands. If we fly by air over the coast of Greece, we will see archipelagos, groups of islands. This is an archipelago of laughter and fire. Those islands that we see, it's like that. No? Those islands are separated in the way that we see the stars in the sky at night. And it's as if the sea is up there. If we look from the aeroplane, we see the rippled sea below us with the islands. He's looking upwards, and there he's seeing this sea of sky with its ripples and the beautiful islands. Slava.
Yes. Your spells make rain of light
Vivid.
of you and gleaming share of strength quality flowing from distance like a single wall.
Yes, this is what he's seeing, these archipelagos. And it's maybe we can connect it with what nowadays we see through the Hubble telescope. It shows us things out in far space. We see these towered spirals and these magic rings of vivid colors and gleaming spheres. Our world is a sphere, no? And those spheres, they suggest happiness, a strange felicity, a happiness that is unfamiliar to us. They are floating there in that rippled sea of sky, forming a symbol world, representing laughter, happiness, fire, intensity, intense delight. Joel.
On the trouble and the toil they could not share, on the unhappiness they could not aid, impervious to life's suffering, struggle, grief, untarnished by its anger, gloom, and hate, unmoved, untouched, looked down great vision plains, blissful forever in their timeless right.
So this is the griefless life that he's seeing, no? And all those beautiful spheres and spirals, they're looking down on the trouble and the toil, all the effort of our world. They can't share our trouble and toil. They are griefless. They look down on all our unhappiness, and they can't help it. They can't aid us. They themselves are impervious. It means if you're out in the rain, you would like to have a raincoat that's impervious, that doesn't let the rain pass through. Nothing passes through it. No? Somebody who's impervious, he doesn't let anything touch him. So those worlds are impervious. They just don't feel life's suffering and struggle and grief. They are untarnished. If you have a silver necklace here in our humid climate, it will get tarnished. The silver will get some kind of surface on it which doesn't shine. But those worlds are untarnished by all the trouble here. They're untarnished by the anger, the gloom, now it's becoming a bit gloomy, isn't it? We don't see the sun. It's becoming a bit dark, gloom, cloudy. And hate. Those things happen in our world. They don't touch that symbol world of the griefless life. Those great visioned planes, those wonderful higher planes of life which Asvapati is seeing with his power of vision, they are unmoved, untouched, looking down on all the trouble here. And they are blissful forever in their timeless right. So that's where this life goddess has come from. Do you like to read, sir?
Absorbed in their own beauty and content, of their immortal gladness they live sure. Apart in their self-glory come remote. Burning they swam in the great lucent place, and everlasting refuge of dreamland, a nebula of the splendors of the gods, made from the musing of eternity.
Yes. So those worlds are just absorbed. They may look down on our world, but they are fully concentrated in their own world, absorbed in their own beauty and content. Content, their own satisfaction, their happiness. They live absolutely sure and confident of their own immortal gladness, their happiness. They are apart from us and all our trouble. They're plunged, deeply concentrated in their own self-glory, remote, very, very far away from us, burning. They swam in this vague haze, this mist, which is full of light. They form an everlasting refuge of dream light. A nebula is a cloud, but we also speak of a nebula, many, many stars forming a cloud. A nebula of the splendors of the gods, and this nebula is made from the musings of eternity, the musings, the dreaminess of eternity. Rita.
Almost unbelievable by human faith, hardly they seem the stuff of things that are. as through a magic television's glass, outlined through some magnifying inner eye, they shone like images thrown from a far scene, too high and glad for mortal lids to seize.
Yes. Can almost not believe in them. Our eyes don't believe what they are seeing. No? We can't have faith that such things are real. They hardly seem to be the stuff, the substance of real things. It's as if he's seeing them, it says, as through a magic television's glass. Here Sri Aurobindo's using this word television in its original sense, which means seeing at a distance. So a telescope makes us see at a distance. So through the glass, he's seeing at a distance. He sees these worlds outlined to some magnifying inner eye. It's not the outer eye that he's seeing with. The inner eye is making those things seem near and close. They're shining like images which are thrown from a far scene, far, far away. A place that's far too high and far too glad, too happy for our mortal lids, our mortal eyelids to seize, out of our reach. Kamala.
But real, unreal to the longing heart, and to the body's passionate thought and sense, are the hidden kingdom of beatitude.
Yes, we may seem too far away and too lovely to believe in, but to the heart, these places are near and real, and we long for them, no? And also the body has its own consciousness and its own senses. It's longing for the bliss of those worlds, those hidden kingdoms of beatitude. Beatitude is another word for ananda, for bliss. Bhuvana.
In some close, unattained realm is yet you feel, immune from the harsh touch of death and mind, escaping the sins of sorrow and despair, in bright enchanted sage victory, forever dwelling in bliss delight.
Those worlds, no? Those hidden kingdoms of beatitude. He says that realm is close to us, but somehow we can't reach it. Some close, unattained realm. We haven't reached it. When you've attained something, you've reached it. But still we can feel that realm. We can feel its attraction and its reality. It's immune. Nowadays we know what this word means, no? You have your immune system, which keeps your body strong, you don't get sick. Immune from the harsh clutch of death and time, which our bodies are not immune to. Because they're immune and because they're unattained, they're escaping from our search, the search of sorrow and desire. They are protected in bright, enchanted, safe peripheries. A periphery is a borderline. They are safe inside those enchanted peripheries. It's as if there's a magic spell. Those kingdoms, forever wallowing in bliss, they lie. Wallowing is a very strange word to put together with bliss. wallowing is what pigs do in mud. They roll and it's so nice and cool and sticky. Wallowing. Sri Aurobindo uses this word several times in Savitri to indicate this kind of, they are wallowing in bliss.
But wallowing is also used for sadness. Not just for happy wallowing. Someone is wallowing in misery.
Yes, people can wallow in misery, but it means that they're taking a delight in that misery. They don't want to be comforted. They're just making the most of it. Yeah? Rolling in the mud. Yes. You read Bhuvana?
Yes, I do.
Martin.
In dreams and trance and muse, before our eyes, across the subtle vision's inner field, wide rapturous landscapes fleeting from the sight, the figures of the perfect kingdom pass, and behind them leave the shining memories trail.
Sri Aurobindo is saying that we sometimes get glimpses of these beautiful, blessed worlds of life. Maybe in dream, trance, in that musing state, daydreaming state. Somehow our subtle vision, the inner vision, not of our physical eyes, we get a glimpse of those beautiful landscapes, full of delight, wide, rapturous landscapes. We see them just for a moment. They're fleeting from the sight. The figures of the perfect kingdom pass. And they are gone, fleeting, but they leave behind a shining memories trail. We remember them.
Imagine the scenes on great eternal worlds. Dream thought are sensed. They capture hearts with their depths. Unreal seeming, yet more real than life. Happier than happiness, truer than things true. These dreams, these were captured images. Dreams truth, made false years, vain realities. In a swift, eternal moment, fixed to death,
Live.
or ever recall, come back to longing eyes. Calm heavens of imperishable light, illumine the continents of wild peace, oceans and rivers of the will of God, and breathless families under pure sun.
Very, very beautiful and special lines. No? So these, we get these images, brief images of the perfect kingdom. And Sri Aurobindo says, whether they are imagined scenes, things that our mind has conjured up, or perhaps they are great eternal worlds, whether they're caught in dream, or whether we really experience them through the senses, however it is, they touch our hearts with their depths. We feel really moved by them. They seem unreal in a way, but in another way, they're much more real than life, happier than what we normally think of as happiness, truer than things we think are true. Whether they are dreams or maybe really captured images of things that really exist, however it is, the truth of the dream makes Earth's realities seem false, worthless. They're so much more valuable, than what we normally see. And then he gives an example. In a swift moment is gone, but this is an eternal moment. It may be gone, but it remains forever. Fixed there live. That's one thing, that it's always there. Or ever recalled, we may remember again and again, coming back to our longing eyes that want to see those scenes again and again. Those calm heavens of imperishable light, and those continents, those lands, those vast lands, lit up, illumined, violet peace. The color violet, there's something very peaceful about it, no? These scenes, we see these landscapes, these oceans and rivers of the mirth of God, God's laughter, mirth, and griefless countries. Again, he uses this word, under purple suns. Just recently, somebody wrote to me asking about these lines. And I was able to tell him there's a little story about Amalkiran, who used to write to Sri Aurobindo when he was composing this part. He used to type the manuscripts and sometimes. So he asked him about these illumined continents of violet peace. And he compared them to two lines in Latin, in the Latin epic of Virgil, about some kind of countries like that were purple and violet. And Amal said, is there a connection? And Sri Aurobindo said, yes, maybe what the Roman poet was seeing was some kind of life heaven, some vital heaven. He said those ancient peoples, they thought those life heavens were the highest heavens. And their characteristic color is this violet, the violet peace. And then he said, wherever it's come from, whatever it means, he said, it's inspired me to add a line that was missing. And that's this last line. These griefless countries under purple suns. So for those ancient peoples, the Greeks and Romans, the word purple, their word was purpureo. It had a special significance. That color, they could only obtain it from some shellfish that live off the coast of what is now Syria. And the people who lived there in that area, Syria and Lebanon, they used to collect the shellfish and extract this purple dye. And they dyed threads with that to weave cloth. And along with the purple, they wove gold threads. You know, we have shot silk where we put two colors together. They did it with purple and gold. So of course that cloth, it was so rare and so costly. Only the people of the imperial family, the emperor's family, close family, were allowed to wear that cloth. And we had an Italian scholar lady here with us once. She explained about these gold threads, so that it's not just the color purple as we normally know it, but it was this shining effect. So these purple suns, they are glowing gold and purple together. Griefless countries under purple sun. So that's a good place to stop today. Amid her swift, untold variety, something remained dissatisfied, ever the same, and in the new saw only a face of the old, for every hour repeated all the rest, and every change prolonged the same unease. A spirit of herself and aim unsure, tired soon of too much joy and happiness, she needs the spur of pleasure and of pain, and the native taste of suffering and unrest. She strains for an end that never can she win. A perverse savour haunts her thirsting lips, for the grief she weeps which came from her own choice, for the pleasure yearns that racked with wounds her breast. Aspiring to heaven, she turns her steps towards hell. Chance she has chosen, and danger for playfellows. Fate's dreadful swing she has taken for cradle and seat. Yet pure and bright from the timeless was her birth. A lost world rapture lingers in her eyes. Her moods are faces of the infinite. Beauty and happiness are her native right, and endless bliss is her eternal home. This now revealed its antique face of joy, a sudden disclosure to the heart of grief, tempting it to endure and long and hope. Even in changing worlds bereft of peace, in an air racked with sorrow and with fear, and while his feet trod on a soil unsafe, he saw the image of a happier state. In an architecture of hieratic space, circling and mounting towards creation's tops, at a blue height which never was too high for warm communion between body and soul. As far as heaven, as near as thought and hope, glimmered the kingdom of a griefless life. Above him, in a new celestial vault, other than the heavens beheld by mortal eyes, as on a fretted ceiling of the gods, an archipelago of laughter and fire swam stars apart in a rippled sea of sky. Towered spirals, magic rings of vivid hue, and gleaming spheres of strange felicity floated through distance like a symbol world. On the trouble and the toil they could not share, on the unhappiness they could not aid, impervious to life's suffering, struggle, grief, untarnished by its anger, gloom and hate, unmoved, untouched, looked down great visioned plains, blissful forever in their timeless right. Absorbed in their own beauty and content, of their immortal gladness they live sure. Apart in their self-glory plunged, remote, burning they swam in a vague lucent haze, an everlasting refuge of dream light, a nebula of the splendors of the gods, made from the musings of eternity. Almost unbelievable by human faith, hardly they seem the stuff of things that are. As through a magic television's glass, outlined to some magnifying inner eye, they shone like images thrown from a far scene, too high and glad for mortal lids to seize. But near and real to the longing heart, and to the body's passionate thought and sense, are the hidden kingdoms of beatitude. In some close, unattained realm which yet we feel, immune from the harsh clutch of death and time, escaping the search of sorrow and desire, in bright, enchanted, safe peripheries, forever wallowing in bliss they lie. In dream and trance and muse before our eyes, across a subtle vision's inner field, wide rapturous landscapes fleeting from the sight, the figures of the perfect kingdom pass, and behind them leave a shining memory's trail. Imagined scenes or great eternal worlds, dream-caught or sensed, they touch our hearts with their depths. Unreal seeming, yet more real than life, happier than happiness, truer than things true. If dreams these were, or captured images, dreams truth made false, earth's vain realities. In a swift eternal moment fixed there live or ever recalled, come back to longing eyes, calm heavens of imperishable light, illumined continents of violet peace, oceans and rivers of the mirth of God, and griefless countries under purple sun.